Hello, and welcome to episode number 20 of Boutique Talk. My name is Jake Boston, otherwise known as Steelbook Obsessed on all your major social media platforms. And if you want to listen to all things physical media related, then you've come to the right place. Every week, I have on a new guest to talk about their physical media journey, and today, my guest has a great YouTube channel with one of the coolest basements that I've ever seen. He's also 1/3 of the Rad Pack podcast. Let's give it up for Garrett from Born2BeRad. How's it going, man?
What's up, Jake? Thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate this. This is cool. So we get the audio, we get the video. I love it.
Correct, yeah. And when you brought this movie up to me, Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge, I had it in my collection ever since it came out, and I just never had any time to where I'm like, I'm feeling watching this movie. So I'm really glad you brought this to the table today.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. I mean, I'm actually glad you had it. And I'm glad I could be the one to kind of get you to unwrap the thing and get watching, because it's such an interesting addition. And when you asked me, hey, I do the podcast about boutique labels and I want to pick something and let's do Arrow Video. And I'm like, all right. And I knew exactly what I wanted to pick, only because I know for certain this is not going to be one of everybody's favorites, right? So I wanted to be a little bit more obscure, because when it comes to Arrow and it comes to this movie, it was just one of those things that I was like, there's no business that this movie should have got the love it got, because it never had a good edition on DVD or anything like that. It was a very bare bones, like crap quality edition. So all of a sudden, to come out of nowhere and Arrow be like, we're going to make a big box limited. We're going to give you all this extra stuff. It was like, what? Like, this is what I want. This is what I want from Arrow Video, is to try to give new life to these movies, especially these 80s kind of cheesy horror movies that just get lost in the shuffle. And I love that. And I know we're going to talk more about it, but that's why I wanted to choose this one tonight, because I knew this might be one that I think people should kind of try to hunt down.
I agree with that. I mean, quality wise, I feel like this is something that Vinegar Syndrome would love to have in their catalog, but Arrow Video did it. And it's like, I like Arrow Video and like just their wide array of selections you can choose from. Like, you got some like classy Criterion-esque collection stuff here. You have some schlocky Vinegar Syndrome stuff there. And then you have like your nice horror like the Scream Factory has. It's kind of a little bit of everything. That's why I like Arrow Video so much. So yeah, I'm very excited to talk about Phantom of the Mall. But before we do that, I kind of want to talk about how you started collecting in the first place. In your basement, you have a ton of very cool stuff. And I love just seeing like whenever you show like hey, here are some 5 things from this horror franchise that you might not know about type deals. Love those. Did you start collecting toys first, or was it always movies, or how did it start?
Oh, man. Well, I appreciate that you like that series, The 5 Collectibles. That's a new series I started on my channel, which I wasn't sure how it was going to take off, because more or less I do like horror talk or physical media stuff, but never like collectibles and stuff like that. So I'm happy that you checked it out and like it, because it's a nice avenue for me to kind of change things up, because I do have so much stuff in my collection. And to be honest, this whole thing started like, if I could have told you this was going to happen when I was like a little kid. Because it started with things like toys. Like, that was the big one. As far as I remember, like, I remember getting my first action figure was Skeletor. That's the big one that I remember as a kid. And when I got that, it was like, well, what else is there? And then there was a cartoon for He-Man. And then I started to learn the characters. Then it became, I want everything from this. I want the Castle Grayskull. I want Snake Mountain. I want Slime Pit. I want all the villains. I want this. And it just was like, I wasn't happy until I had everything, as a kid. And it was not as easy to come by, because obviously it had to be parents' permission and, Mom, can you buy me this? Can you buy me that? And it wasn't always yes, yes, yes. It was like, oh, you got to wait for Christmas. You got to wait for this. So I was always had that collector mentality, even going to McDonald's, like, to get a Happy Meal and getting one of those toys. I needed all those toys. So I needed to figure out, like, who do I need to talk to get me to go there every week so I get one of the different toys that came out. It could have been like anything from Bambi to like Simpsons or whatever the heck they had at the time. And toys was the beginning, man. It was really that. It started at He-Man, and then I went to Ghostbusters, same deal. I needed all of them. I wanted the Firehouse. I wanted this. And then it went to Ninja Turtles, and then it went to Wrestlers. And it was just these little cycles and, pockets of my childhood that I remember when it came to anything I was into, baseball cards, comic books, whatever. It became like I want everything. I want to get it all. Like, it just became my everything at that time. So if you would have asked me if this would have happened to me in the future, of course. And I just didn't know movies was going to be the way. And what really started that for me was my uncle. He's a big horror movie fan. And he got me into horror movies. He was trying to get me into horror movies as a young age. And my dad was always kind of putting a stop to it every time he tried to show me Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Friday the 13th at a like real young age.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to get older, and I was in high school, I really got into movies a lot. Like I was always a big movie fan growing up. Like we were at the movie theater with my family all the time seeing stuff. But when I started to kind of get my own money, that's where everything kind of changed, because then I had control of like what I was getting, and it started at VHS, and then it went heavily into DVDs, and then it went into just kind of everything at that point. The more money you get, the more you spend, kind of thing. And I tell people this all the time. They look at my collection like, oh my God, like, how did you get all this? Things back then weren't the prices they are now. Like I could go to, and I'm sure you probably remember, I mean, when it came to DVDs, I could go to a used DVD store, leave with like 25 horror movies and spend like $40.
Sure.
Or now $40 is getting you one movie, you know? And so I was able to build up a lot. And another thing I did was, when it came to figures and all this other stuff, was I just bought them straight up. So, you know, they go out of print or you can't get them anymore, and then people are buying them secondhand. So I was just always kind of on top of things when it came to that stuff. And now now's the hardest, I think, because I've been in it for so long that upgrading and upgrading and upgrading, double dipping and this, that, it's just, it's so much. Like I've never seen, at least the physical media market, this hot and heavy ever. And I've been collecting heavily in the physical media market since like late 90s, probably.
Because right now they're not going for like the general masses. They're going for the collector. So they got to make like their box sets as nice as they possibly can to get every single dollar we have.
They found us, man. They did. So, I mean, that's really my story in a nutshell. And it just became, you know, when you have funds of your own, it's just, you know, you can get what you want, do what you want. And it's just stuck with me. And like you said before, it's not just physical media, it's kind of everything, but I've really tried to limit it just to more of like specific things now, because it can get out of control. And, you know, I try not to do the figures thing as much anymore, but yeah, it gets wild. But I mean, it's at the same time, I'm pretty cautious with it, because I know it can get out of hand. And I'm just curious too, like on yourself, like, is this something you got into a long time ago as well? Or, you know, I know a lot of people that are collecting now kind of got into it around the Blu-ray time, and a lot of people had a lot of DVDs, it felt like. But when did you start, man?
As a kid, I feel like I really started collecting with Pokemon cards. Like the whole gotta catch 'em all thing was me. Like I needed to have every single one, and that just kind of like got embedded in my DNA. So everything else that I had, like Pogs, I just wanted to have as many as possible. I had a sticker book, sports cards, all that type of stuff. But kind of like you, when I finally got my first job, I was 14. I was reffing flag football games, and I would get like $20 per game. So I would ref as many games as I possibly could. I'd go to my local mom and pop video store, buy a lot of their used VHS tapes. Okay. Like that was my thing, is just to kind of create I've loved movies forever, and I lived in the boonies. So like we had TV, but I always wanted to have like whatever I wanted to watch whenever I could watch it. You know, one of those deals. The ownership of everything, like even back then, was nice. So yeah, I started with VHS. Then I went to DVD. But I really started collecting heavily with movies and like making that my obsession when I was in college. I bought a PS3, so I had a Blu-ray player. I had a nice TV. That's when I really dove in deep, and I really liked the picture quality I was getting with Blu-rays. So I went crazy. But that was like 2008, 2009, sometime around then.
Yeah. That was kind of when I probably started with Blu-rays as well. It was probably like that 2008, 2009. Yeah, definitely. I think my first Blu-ray was, I think I got 3. I got the Matrix box set. I think I got Lost Boys. I think I got House of a Thousand Corpses or something like that. I can remember like a couple of those were like my first few Blu-rays, but it was probably around, you're right, like 07, 08, something like that.
Yeah, I know the PS3 came with Spider-Man 3, I believe, and then I had Ratatouille. Like those are like the 2 of my first copies that I remember having.
It's so funny. Now, now you said, I think what it was is, like you said, college and all that stuff, and having that collector mentality growing up. Yeah. Like me, you probably thought to yourself, yeah, I'm going to have some kind of collector mentality forever in some aspect.
Always, man. And like when I was in as soon as I had my first house, which was like God, I think I was like 23, 24 when I was able to buy that. I went hard into video games because I wasn't able to have a lot as a kid, and
Mhm.
that was what I was collecting heavily, and then having like some Blu-ray sprinkled in there whenever I had extra funds. But I played the games. I'm like, I had kids, and as soon as I had kids, I'm like, I have no time to play these games anymore. So why am I collecting them? Movies are nice because you can watch them for hour and a half, 2 hours, just be
Mhm.
done, have that experience, log my review, and go on to the next one. So that's where my focus kind of went heavily on movies and games. I still have some, but I mean, again, I still have no time to play them, man. The older you get, the less time you have, I swear.
100%, man. I totally agree with you.
Hmm. Well, I see. I was talking a little bit about your collection back there. Do you have something that you like to collect more than others, or is it just like a hey, I like this property, so anything that I can get in this property, I want.
Um, I think it's interesting. Like physical media obviously is a big one. Posters I really dig. Props I really dig. Like replicas and stuff like that. Like I mean, that Chucky doll back there, like that was something that I've wanted since I was a little kid. And I
Hmm.
remember for years and years when I started collecting heavily, I was looking for I'm like, why don't they make like a life-size Chucky doll? So I would always buy these smaller like Chucky dolls that they made, like just as placeholders for like that. Hopefully someday it would release. So when that thing was announced, I mean, I was all over that because it was just something I've always wanted. So I think it's hard to say where I really like love. Physical media is the one I think I do the most just because it's always coming out. A lot of the other
Hmm.
stuff is either stuff I'm trying to go back in time to grab on eBay, old posters and stuff like that. And screen prints are another one, which is kind of like alternate movie artwork. But again, it's like the more you get into in the day and age that we're in, it's like everything's just so expensive, right? For me to get a brand new poster of an art piece is like, it's $80 a poster, it's $60 a poster, and these
Right.
props down here, like these are all like over $100 props. So it's hard. Physical media is more as expensive as it's become. It's probably the cheapest thing that I collect, to be honest with you at this point.
Sure. No. Yeah. Seeing all the stuff back there, I can kind of see why. Yeah, you think that way and have that mindset. Um, when you buy movies, do you feel obligated to buy it as soon as they come out, or are you more like I'm gonna wait and either watch the stuff I already have, or just wait to see if it gets any cheaper than what it is now?
That's an interesting question because I've become very picky when it comes to how I'm doing things, and I've almost kind of created specific strategies because, like it's overload. Like a lot of these companies are putting out, especially boutique, 4 a month, and trying to keep
Mhm.
up with all that is craziness. So I've been just picky about how I'm doing things. Like, for instance, I rarely buy studio release movies anymore. Like, I don't. Like, if I do, it's going to be something I really like, and I'll always grab like if there's That's why I love Best Buy because when they did like that limited steelbook, or
Mhm.
like I would always dive on the steelbook because it would be an incentive for me to be like, you know what, I'm going to grab this movie, grab a cool edition of it.
Correct.
Like I got those like the Goonies, Beetlejuice, like all those when they came out,
Mhm.
American Psycho, like all these movies, like I snagged right away. But now, hopefully Walmart kind of continues with that because that was an incentive for me to buy some of these things. But I don't buy a lot of studio releases otherwise. I stick to mostly boutique now, unless it's like a movie I absolutely love. And then I'm kind of strategic with that too. Like Vinegar Syndrome is the one I blind buy the most, I
Mm.
think, and that could be good or bad. Because a lot of their stuff is not good. But then I always have this feeling like it's so fun to find a movie that you've never heard of before, that's older, that you watch
Mhm.
and you're like, oh my God, where's this been all my life? Like, so that thrill of that is like
Right.
why I blind buy a lot of stuff because I'm like, there's gotta be a gem in here that I've missed,
Right. It
and
goes back to like your video rental days. Like you would just pick something from the
100%.
artwork. Yeah. Hmm.
Exactly, and that's kinda why I blind buy from Vinegar Syndrome quite a bit. Kino, I love their work, but, like, I don't buy those day one because I always wait. I'm like, "They're gonna do a sale," and they have a real good sale, so I always kinda wait on those. Criterion's the same way, like, I won't buy them for a long time, and then all of a sudden, they'll have a sale at Barnes& and Nobles, and I'll go and try to pick up a couple I've missed or something. So, mainly, like, Arrow, Vinegar Syndrome, those are the 2 that I feel like I'm buying kinda day one-ish.
Sure.
I usually have them by day one. I'll usually pre-order them.
Hmm.
Scream Factory, I've learned to kind of hold off because I've been able to get a lot of 4Ks cheaper if I hold off a couple months and stuff like that. So, yeah, day one, it depends, but I've really shied away from that as much as I used to, just
Yeah.
because it's so much.
I started collecting Vinegar Syndrome last year when they had their 10th anniversary sale and they had like 10 days of $10 deals. Like I loaded up then and it was great. But like as slowly as I'm actually watching these movies, I'm like, oh, okay, I want to be wowed here. And more often than not, I'm sadly disappointed, if I'm being honest. Their
I would
packaging looks phenomenal, but the content inside of that package leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, I would really with Vinegar Syndrome because again, I would look at reviews if you're thinking about something you don't know, just because again, there are a lot of misses, and we find that we do a show every time they do a sale, we do like a midnight show on the drop, and we'll
Yep.
like talk about like what's dropped, and 9 times out of 10, it's always like I know none of this stuff, right? And you figure
Yeah.
between all the people on the show, somebody should know some of these titles, and
Mhm.
a lot of the times we don't, and that's what's so wild is it's just like who's going nuts for these right now? Like I've never even heard of these movies.
Right.
And I'll usually hold off on a lot of those as well, like until they go on sale, because you can kind of tell the ones that are going to be there for a while and then they end up going on sale, but you have to sometimes wait almost a year to get them on sale. But
Hmm.
I'm not necessarily in a huge rush on a lot of that stuff because like you said, sometimes they'll do some really crazy sales. And if you get burned on something, it's not like you're spending $50 on it or whatever.
Right.
So
Well, the live stream thing, that's the main thing that got me like into Vinegar Syndrome. Is just like the drop. Like you talked about steel books. I had a group of like 5 or 6 people that were complete strangers, but every new release Tuesday when a new steel book dropped, we always met up before Best Buy opened, just so we could kind of get them before their stock ran out. That's what these live streams kind of remind me of a little bit, is that hey, we don't know what's going to be in here, but let's have like a community grab around us and just kind of say, hey, are these movies any good or not? I watch you on Dead Pit a lot whenever
yep.
those monthly things happen,
Yep.
and Master Chaos. Like those are the ones that I kind of like go back and
Mhm.
forth with because I like hearing their opinions on things, and it's nice to just be like in a community, be like, hey, is this movie good or not? Let me know.
Yeah, like me, we Deadpit and I simulcast on my channel and theirs at the same time, and Master Chaos does his. So we're the two like main ones I think that most people watch and check out.
Hmm.
But yeah, you're right. Like because I've been collecting Vinegar Syndrome since their first release, so I've kind of been there
Mm.
since the beginning and kind of seen how
Uh-huh.
they've evolved, which is really it's really mind blowing to see where they've come because that's what I appreciate about them, and that's why we do these live drops because they've got a way to hype things up to build excitement and even if you're disappointed every single time you do it, there's always that excitement that they build and I appreciate that and I try to use that mentality into even things that I do for the channel. Like I
Hmm.
try to always hype things up. I try to make things seem, larger than life. And that's what they've done. Even though we sometimes get disappointed, we always go back for more. It's kind of like my mentality when it comes to being a big wrestling fan. It's like habit and hope. It's like I have it, let's just watch it all the time and hope that it's going to get good. So
Correct. Yep.
that's my mindset when it comes to that. They do a hell of a job to see where they came from and what they've done. They've become innovators in this whole boutique industry, I think, for a company that kind of was just putting out like almost like exploitation and softcore shit like at the beginning. So they've really come a long way with all the different stuff they're doing now. And I think a lot of these other boutique labels are almost kind of try to mimic a lot of what they're doing because it's
Yep.
just working so well. It's taking these movies that no one's ever heard about, spicing them up with some packaging and some hype, and all of a sudden everybody wants it. It's crazy to see. And you see a lot of these other boutique labels popping up and kind of doing the same thing. And
Hmm.
that's what kind of brings us to like what we're going to talk about tonight, but on a weird scale, because in my head, Arrow Video are like top dogs. Like
Yeah.
Arrow, Scream Factory to me
Hmm.
were always like kind of top of the mountain when it came to boutique labels.
Hmm.
So to see what they kind of did with this release, it was crazy to me.
Do you remember what boutique label was the first one to kind of like catch your eye and you kind of just discovered what boutique labels were?
Um, So like during the DVD days, Anchor Bay was a huge one. So now that they're back in the
Yeah.
news is pretty cool because like they
Hmm.
were kind of considered the big deal when it came to horror. Now, would you consider them a boutique label? Yeah, I guess so, sure. And they were killing it with all this. That's how I found out about so many horror movies back then was when I saw the little logo on the spine. I was like, you know what, I'm
Hmm.
going to check this out because I'm not
They were
usually
the ones
disappointed.
that came out with the Necronomicon Book of the Dead,
Yeah.
right? Those,
Mhm.
oh my god, I want one of those so bad. Like the packaging on their stuff was second to none whenever they came out with like a nice limited edition like that.
Oh man, they were innovators and they were pioneers and the whole I think boutique labels, look back on them and saw what they did and said, "Are we going to try to do stuff like this?" And I still think that when it came to some of the releases they did, there's still no matching it. So with them in the news coming back, it's going to be interesting to see if they can have that magic again being in the
Hmm.
way things are with all this different competition. So I would say Anchor Bay and then Code Red kind of came out around that time for horror
Yeah,
stuff and
yeah.
that was a very, very boutique because like you literally had to go on some guy's homemade website and purchase all this stuff. Like it was pretty wild. And you felt really kind of underground in the know when you were collecting those. They had the numbers on the spines. So that was a real big deal back in the day. So in the DVD era, those were like the two big ones. And then I think Code Red got into Blu-rays. So that really brought me over into that area when I got to Blu-rays is to still collect the Code Red, still collect Anchor
Hmm.
Bay. But Scream Factory really did, I think, put a lot on the map because that was huge when that was announced. I can remember
Yeah.
being at work and seeing that announcement, I think, on Facebook or something and being like, what is going on here? And they showed like their first couple releases, and I'm like, all horror, this is wild. And man, I was the biggest Scream Factory mark for like the first X amount of years. I had this place near me called Movie Stop where I used to go in and I had a subscription where basically was like every time Scream Factory came out, they would just put it aside for me. And I would go
Hmm.
in every week and they would have all of it ready for me. So like I had like some kind of service with them where if I did it that way, I got like a 10% off my order or something. And
Yeah.
that's how I was able to collect everything they did for the first couple of years. And that place shut down. And then it was a little bit harder at that point to do. But man, Scream Factory at the beginning was just like unbelievable.
Hmm. Yeah, I didn't. Scream Factory, I guess Criterion is the first one that I noticed. I worked at Hollywood Video. They had their own Criterion section, and that made me think like, oh, okay, there's this little boutique label. What else is there? And then the second one I found was Scream Factory with that Halloween set. That just, yeah. I feel like that huge box set was a big game changer in the industry.
Yeah, it's still a big item, I think. Even though it's come out on 4K and all that stuff, still think that that's a legendary item because it was like kind of the first time they all were housed together and they had the Rob
Right.
Zombies in there. And I still really do think like that physical media release was still something special. And I think a lot of collectors still want, even though you can technically get a lot of these on 4K, but it's still, yeah, a really, really cool item for sure.
Hmm. I know you were talking about Vinegar Syndrome starting from them, like watching how they've grown the past 10 years. I kind of have the same relationship a little bit. I've only been following them for the past like 4 years, but Umbrella Entertainment, I feel like they
Mhm.
are just like consistently going upward. It's very cool to see like how bare bones their releases used to be, but they were still nice at the time. They had like slip covers and some posters in there, and now what they're coming out with like the box sets and stuff,
Mhm.
and they're even partnering with Vinegar Syndrome, like with the OCN stuff. So just to see where
Yeah.
they're at now, I cannot wait to see like how they expand and grow and continue to put out great work, because I feel like every single release they put out right now has been fire, at least for the past like 6 months.
I actually will agree with you on Umbrella too. I don't have too many Umbrella ones, but like the earlier ones that I have, like you said, they were bare bones. They might have
Yeah,
had some alternate artwork or something like that, but they were just in regular packages, no slip covers or anything.
right.
And then all of a sudden now they're putting out these big sets with all this special stuff, and I think it's killer. I think my only not issue, but like for instance, I would buy so much more from them, but like I was on their site yesterday and I was like, okay, I want this Master of the Universe set.
Hmm.
But I'm like, I have the Blu-ray already. I'm like, do I just lateral move here? If this was a 4K, it would have been in my cart pre-ordered already
Yep.
because it
Yep.
would have been an easy buy because it was like, okay, I'm upgrading the format and it comes with all this cool stuff and it's in a nice thick box, which I would take any day over a standard release.
Hmm.
Um, but that's my thing is it's like, why, the 4K aspect is like, oh man, like, I don't know now. And the same thing with Monkey Shines. It's like one of my favorite horror movies. And I'm like, I
Right.
want that set. I love the love it gave this thing, but I'm like,
Hmm.
I wish it was 4K because I don't want a 4K to come out and then me to be like, well, I'll get it again. So
Yeah.
that's my only concern is that a lot of that stuff is still just the Blu-ray format, which I'm not a 4K. I don't care as much, but I think it's more the idea of that I'm just laterally moving
I totally get that.
you
Yeah.
know, than
Mhm.
upgrading kind of. And that's my biggest concern or issue right now because there's a lot of stuff on there that I want. I did order the Mario set, which
Have you seen how thick that thing is?
dude,
Oh
that
my
it just
god.
they just emailed me saying it was shipped. I can't wait to get it because the stuff that's in that is unreal. Like it's like
Yeah.
what sold me was there's a book where it says like it's gonna have alternate scripts that they were given. I'm like, oh man, I gotta hear more about what's this movie could have been and what some of the pitches were for this movie
Yep.
because it was just so out there. But I have that coming. They killed the Talk to Me set. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
they're definitely someone to keep your eyes on right now. And I just think like one of the other things that I was kind of on the fence about was I was going to buy that Hitcher set because I
Mhm.
mean I've been waiting for that thing to get an upgrade forever.
Yeah.
But then Second Sight keeps saying, "Oh, the 4K is coming," and I'm like, "Shoot!" Like,
Yep.
and I just think that's kind of that hurts our Umbrella a little bit, knowing that you've got Second Sight on their tail, basically be like, "Oh no, wait, don't buy yet. We got ours coming."
Agreed. And their 4Ks look so nice whenever they put one out, but they only put like one out every 3 months. I feel like if they were to rev that up and at least have one of their monthly releases be a 4K, it would help them out with the collectors so much.
I agree, dude, for real.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that they're killing it. But it's those little things like we've already got Masters on Blu-ray, we've already got Monkey Shines on Blu-ray. Can't we
Right.
just uptick the quality and just give us something a little bit new? Because I would have been all over this. And to be honest, I'll probably still bite the bullet on those two things, anyways. So
Right.
it
The
is what
Monkey
it
Shines, I
is.
have that one. The transfer is good, and it carries over the Scream Factory documentary
It
on there
does,
too.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I have the Scream Factory one, so it's just like, oh, I'm gonna buy the same thing. But I just love that a movie like that gets the love that it got because it
Mhm.
it never has had love that from like that before. And that's going to be kind of what we're going to talk about as well tonight is the same idea of these movies that are getting this love from these companies that I wouldn't say don't have the right to be, but at the same time you wouldn't expect it, I think.
Right. And this is a good a time as any to switch and kind of focus and pinpoint in on Arrow Video themselves. I have to play the intro because it bothers me that they just changed it because they had the best intro in the game. I'm going to play it just to kind of set the mood. That's
Ooh,
perfection. Why mess
fire.
with that? Every time that pops in, like I put on Phantom of the Mall. I always play the movie that I'm talking about in the background just so if I can peek up and maybe see something. Anytime that pops up, I am just ready to go. It gets me excited to watch their releases.
Yeah, Arrow Video is, like I said, one of the top dogs that I think they've kind of been in that seat for a while, but I've seen them evolve as well.
Mhm.
I was collecting Arrow before they even were US based or they were putting out US. Everything I was getting from Arrow was overseas releases for a while.
Mm.
And they had these like cool, like at the time they had these white boxes and it had like a little window frame in it. And then what you could do is you could spin the disc inside, like the packaging inside, kind of like this part, you could spin it and then the window would show an artwork. And then if you flipped it around,
Huh.
it'd be a different artwork. And then if you flipped it inside, you had two more different artworks. So it
Mhm.
was pretty cool at the time. But once they started to come to the US, I ended up selling a lot of those old releases, which I wish I didn't, because they started just re-releasing all the stuff that they did already here. Um, but yeah, they've really evolved as well with their package design. Like, I think they might have been one of the companies that really got that like thick hard box
Mhm.
design down with like the little book and stuff. And that's where
Yep.
you're seeing from like Umbrella and a lot of these other
Oh yeah.
companies now.
There's
But
a lot of copycats, but I mean,
yeah,
this is what I want when I collect. Like, if it's not in a steel book, I want it in a hard case like this because it's just so nice.
same.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite additions, to be honest, is
Mhm.
those thick boxes, which is
Oh yeah.
cool, but at the same time, if you need shelf space, they're not the greatest, but it's so cool to have those thick boxes and stuff like that. So I
Correct.
love the limited stuff Arrow's doing.
Yeah. And they came out with very nice steel books too. They haven't come out with a steel book in quite some time, but the steel books that they did come out with look sharp. Like the ones for Weird Science, Last House on the Left, like when they put original poster
Oh, that
artwork on those
matchup.
steel books, they shine. They're great.
Mhm. Used to get those a lot. They were like at FYE. I would always see
Yeah.
those like hanging around and stuff. I don't know if they were exclusives, but yeah, I had that Last House one because it had that old school VHS art on there, and I always thought that was really cool.
Right. Do you have any Arrow Video releases that are just like top tier in your mind? Like when you think of Arrow Video, what titles do you specifically think of?
When I think of Arrow, obviously I'm thinking a lot of the new stuff. Like, I mean, I think that Psycho set they killed. I think that
Yeah.
they did great on the Hellraiser box.
Hmm.
I'm looking around here. What's next to me? They're all behind me on this shelf back here. That's all my Arrow stuff.
Those are the
But
main
I
two
mean,
that pop in my head too, though, just because they killed those so well.
oh yeah, they did so good on like their box set stuff is great. I mean, they did Reanimator, they did Last House on the Left, they did Hills Have Eyes, like all these movies that I just love. From the horror movies from back in the day, they killed. I think the RoboCop was amazing.
Hmm.
And then they started putting out. What I like about them is they really started to get away from just the horror stuff and put out nice editions of other genre movies that I think people of the horror community accept, like some of these 80s comedies, like they did Weird Science, they did movies like Wild Things. Like, I mean, True Romance. Like, these are all
Hmm.
big deals to me, and movies that I love. So it just made me want to buy more Arrow stuff, seeing that they were kind of spreading their wings a little bit to these other movies that we love.
Right, and then they can go like a totally different route, and they have the giallo box sets, and they have like
Mhm.
a lot of like the deep red, like Italian horror, more stuff there. But they have random comedies, like you said, like A Fish Called Wanda, and then they have like 70s classic slashers that need more love. I think Alice Sweet Alice does not get talked about enough, and I love the release that they came out with for that one.
Now, was
I
that a
love
hard
Arrow
box
Video.
too, or no?
I don't have the hard. I don't think it came out with a hard box. I think it
Yeah,
was
I don't.
just a slipcover. But I'm crossing my fingers for a 4K on that. And if they do put it in a box, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think that they probably will. It seems like most of their 4Ks are getting put in a box, but
Hmm.
yeah, and like the Burbs they did, I have a Burbs from
Yeah.
them, and I would love to get a cool release of that. I don't care if it's overseas, but a 4K of the Burbs, like with a nice hard box, I think would be really cool. Yeah, I
Mhm.
just love the way that their stuff looks aesthetically on the shelf. I think it looks great. And they always do a great job. I mean, they've had a couple issues in the past with some disc replacements, but barely
Mhm.
anything with that. And like you said, they did Argento really good with all those releases they did from him. Like, in those big boxes, everything was really nice on the shelf. You got all your Argento stuff in there. It looks great. So I'm so happy that we decided to talk about Arrow tonight because last year I voted it my favorite boutique label of
Mhm.
last year, and I
Yep.
think the year before the release we're going to talk about right now was my favorite release of the year from a boutique label like 2 years ago. Whenever this came out, I think it might have been like maybe 2022 or something like that.
That sounds about right. One other thing that I like about Arrow Video before we kind of dig into Phantom of the Mall, special features. I feel like they put actual love and care into their special features. Like them and Scream Factory, like the main two that actually like put some development time into what they put on a disc. I love it.
I agree. I think Scream Factory. I think, and again, they've had a lot of changeover with people that work there and stuff.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know if they're doing a ton of that anymore, but they did because all their
Right.
4Ks they're porting everything over
Hmm.
to it. But they did a fantastic job with all that stuff, and I think Arrow does as well. And again, some of the stuff they did for even this release here was
It's
pretty
crazy.
incredible
Yes.
for what it is. So I appreciate it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? We've waited long enough, Garrett. Okay. I think it's time that we start talking about Phantom of the Mall. I have a 30-second TV spot for it that I'm going to play
Oh, I can't
just
wait.
again to set the mood. I love setting moods just to, if the audience has never seen this movie, to let them get a little taste of what to expect. So here is the trailer now.
He's there, behind the wall. You all tried to destroy him. But now, you had better be nice to Eric,
Eric Matthews is still alive.
or Eric won't be nice to you. Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge, rated R.
Oh man.
Phantom of the Mall. Yeah.
That spot doesn't do this movie justice, damn it.
I looked at like a 90-second trailer too, and that one doesn't really do it either. It kind of plays like some of the highlights, but this movie, I had on Mel on this podcast too. The second episode I ever did, we talked about Blood Diner. That one is batshit crazy. This one is like kind of like your run of the mill slasher, but it still has like a different like. It's all 80s. Like both of those movies are quintessential 80s to me. Either like the quirky craziness of that one or just the fun slasher, setting it in a mall and just kind of having that as a time capsule of the time era is, yeah. this was very fun for me to watch.
Well, I'm glad you kind of liked it because again, it's a hard one to really recommend for people. I think because you've got to, I think, like specific things. Like Mel and I are very similar in a lot of ways. Like when it comes to the things that we're into, like I think sometimes we share half a brain, but you know, I just think that for the stuff that I'm into, like the 80s aesthetic, horror, cheesy horror stuff, this just fits in that mold. When you look where it takes place in a mall, in an 80s mall, like that already alone is something right up my alley that I absolutely love. Just the aesthetic of that. It's almost kind of like Phantom of the Opera, but it takes place in a mall. Has to do with you know, a teenager and his girlfriend. He gets burned to death, and all of a sudden now there's somebody haunting the mall, and they're trying to play like this whodunit. And it's kind of like a slasher, like the people are getting killed left and right. They're trying to figure out what's going on. And I mean, you've got people in here like Pauly Shore is in this movie.
It's very first movie. It's crazy. Yeah.
And you know, it's really cool. Morgan Fairchild in this movie. I mean, that's wild in itself. And the main lead was Derek Rydell, who I love from a lot of these movies from back in the 80s, things like Popcorn. There's another movie I love that he's in called Night Visitor. But this dude, I don't know where he is. Like, honestly, like I would love to get that guy on the podcast or something to talk to him because he just kind of vanished. And I was searching him out today to kind of see if he's on Instagram. I don't know if he is. I found someone that could be him, but I don't know if it is. But he had a great look at that time. He was in some cool 80s movies. And I mean, Tom Friedley is another guy who you've probably recognized from 80s movies. He was in Friday the 13th, part 6. I think it was part 6. He played Court. He was in a movie I always talk about called Slumber Party. Oh, geez, I keep saying that. Summer Camp Nightmare. He was in a lot of these 80s movies, and he had like such a cool look. And actually, what I've got on today is kind of what he was wearing in the movie. So I did this on purpose because that was kind of his getup in the movie. He played the old man's son that he was kind of like a pain in the ass. And the guy was like, "Get my son out of the mall. He's causing trouble." He was like flirting with all the girls and stuff. That's Tom Friedley.
On the documentary, it said that he's like a nephew of John Travolta. Just very, very random. Yeah. This movie kind of gathered a lot of very weird people, like Pauly Shore for his first movie, the dude who would end up being the Dos Equis spokesman, Stay Thirsty, my friend guy. Like, that is nuts that he is the owner of the mall here. Just a crazy collection of characters, and I think all of them play well together. But Morgan Fairchild, she kind of like puts a serious tone in here, so it doesn't feel completely wonky. Like, it feels like maybe this could really happen, I guess. But then there's explosions in the mall, and a dude gets killed on an escalator, and she goes flying 3 stories. It's just like, there's crazy stuff that's happening in here, but there's also like a level of like seriousness. I like the tone of this movie quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, I wanted to talk about it, because it just doesn't feel like a movie that Arrow Video would give all the love to, because it really never had a nice edition. Like, when you go back and you look at the original poster art, I think it's like it's the reversible. It's it's kind of garbage, honestly. Like, it's not like cool. Trash. Yeah, like that's what the DVD looked like. That's what the VHS looked like. That's what the movie poster looked like. And you look at that and you're like, ooh, I don't even know what this movie is, and it doesn't look appealing to me at all. No. And the DVD quality was junk. That is like, that right there is like, dude, what is this movie about? I got to see this thing.
This is the main reason why I bought this movie, Garrett, is because this reminded me of something that I would find at a movie rental store and be like, yep, I need to watch this pronto.
Well, I think, honestly, one of the biggest problems with this movie all these years was that damn artwork. Like, it doesn't do it justice for anybody to look like they give a shit about that movie. They're like, what the heck is this? Some kind of like Phantom of the Opera? It's weird. And I honestly loved it. Like, during the DVD days when I first saw it, I had the DVD and I was like, this is cool. But I liked it, but I didn't love it until I got this edition, because when it's all cleaned up, I feel like it gave it such a new life. And that's what I appreciate about the upgraded formats like 4K and Blu-ray coming off things like DVD, even because some of those DVDs are just VHS rips. And when you start seeing something for the first time in HD, it sometimes gives a whole new life to a movie. And that's what I really appreciate about, you know, a lot of these old school movies getting these upgraded treatments, is you almost become, you know, you fall in love with a movie again that you maybe didn't have before. I always bring up Tourist Trap. That was one that I had on DVD forever that I watched once and I was like, junk. And then when I got the Blu-ray, because I was like, you know, I'm going to try it again, because the DVD was so bad in quality and so dark that I never really gave it a chance. And now I love that movie because when I actually get to see what the heck the movie is supposed to look like or what's going on, it just, I appreciate it so much more. And this, I think, is the same way for a lot of people. If you've seen this in the 80s and you were kind of like, meh, I would give it a rewatch because I think the quality they put into this and the way it looks is going to help. And the fact, like you said, there's documentary on here about the making of, and you learn so much about the movie, and they give you 3 damn cuts of this movie on this edition.
I was going to talk to you about that.
Which is nuts to me.
Yes. I had a little bit of time to dig into, like I watched the documentary, I listened to the commentary. Friend of Dead Pit, Michael Felsher, worked on this release. On the commentary, the director says multiple times, I cannot believe how good this movie looks. I think this is the best it's ever looked like, even the theatrical run. Just because like he can actually see stuff. He even said, when I was filming some stuff in like the air ducts and whatnot with the rats, I couldn't see shit. And then when he actually like watched this, he's like, I am struck. Like this movie is way better than what I remember it. And this is the guy who directed the film. So I love releases like this that just kind of like put a movie that was stuck in like VHS DVD era and give it the love and care I guess it deserves. It kind of gives a better appreciation of the movie with as good a transfer as it got.
Oh, easily. And the fact that they put all that effort into this movie, because this wasn't anything that anybody ever talked about, ever.
Yeah.
At least in the realm that I was in during the DVD VHS days and the, message boards I was part of in the horror community, they never talked about Phantom of the Mall ever. So the fact that they gave it this much love and actually found, gave us 3 cuts in HD. You got the television cut, which I appreciate that too. Because I love television cuts because they always give you, even though they cut some stuff, they always give you new scenes that you may not ever see. And a lot of the movies I watched growing up were television cuts because I was watching most of my stuff, recording it off TV when I was a kid, and we didn't have like HBO or anything. So I was watching it off cable. So a lot of these movies, like I bring up Teen Wolf all the time. There's different scenes. There's missing scenes. So when I watched Teen Wolf for the first time on like an actual physical edition, I was like, where's this part? Where's that part? What's this part? So it gave me a whole new experience, and it's cool to have that on here. And I think the best thing is that they give us that fan cut, which is taking the regular theatrical cut, and the TV cut, and just meshing it all together to make one giant cut, which that's my preferred way to watch it because you see everything.
Yeah, I watched the theatrical version first because that's how my brain always works. But just kind of doing research, and I threw the fan cut in. I'm like, this has a totally different intro, which is very strange, like a different 4-minute intro. I loved how Pauly Shore wore a shirt that said Weasel on it. Like before that was like his shtick. That was very good. That intro was weird, like the whole gymnastics thing. It didn't really seem like a good fit in my opinion, but I love having like different content mixed into a film, especially for you, one that you've seen multiple times, and having this new way to watch it.
Yeah, I'd never seen the fan cut or the TV cut until I bought this. So that was cool to kind of see it in a different way than what I was used to all those years. And like we said, I mean, it came with great artwork, commissioned artwork, tons of features on this thing. Look at all that. I'll make
you big here. There you go.
You got tons of features. Like we said, we've got 3 cuts of the film, full documentary. I mean, you get your poster of this awesome artwork again, which is, 100% better than the old one. So here's this is the new cool artwork here. And then look at the crappy one sheet terrible. There.
It's laughably bad. Yeah.
And you get a nice book about the movie. And I don't know. I just really appreciate when somebody like Arrow gives new life to these lost 80s movies. And they did it as well with not such a nice edition like this, but I think they did a great job with, I think it was Hell High, I believe they did. That's another one where I feel like was kind of lost for a long time, and they really cleaned that up nice and made it a real cool edition. And I'm pretty sure it was Hell High that they did.
I want to talk a little bit more about the documentary on here, Shop Till You Drop, because it's 45 minutes of great content, and I love watching documentaries that make you appreciate the movie a little bit more. And there was like this battle between the original writers of the movie saying the movie was nothing like what their original script was. And then you go to the director and he's like, yeah, the script didn't really change that much. I don't know what they're talking about. I love jump cuts like that. They're so fun.
I'm trying to think. I watched the documentary when I first got this, so it's been a while. Did they mention something about like it was a lot more horror-esque before?
Yeah,
Was
there
that one
wasn't a
of the
lot
things?
of like jokey stuff in here. The director was talking a lot about like it was his idea to add in the King Cobra bathroom scene,
Oh
which
yeah.
totally feels like it's in a different movie, but I love how
Yeah.
just random that scene is.
Mhm.
Like even when he's
No,
watching it back, he's like, "This is my favorite part of the movie." I'm just like, really, this part? Yeah.
it is. It's bonkers and wild, but like, you take malls from the 80s, you take, some of these cool characters like the Pauly Shore, the Tom Friedley's in there, and then
Hmm.
you add like, you get your Phantom in the back of the mall lifting weights. I mean, dude, I'm like, this is all me right here. I love all this
Oh
shit.
my god! And
Like
his fighting style is just like
he's like
aerobic karate, just insane. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I'm like, dude, this is like everything I like here. So I just have such a fond love for this movie, and it's way more of a love than I had before this was released. So that's why I found this so special. Is it really did really knock this movie up a lot of tiers in my
Mhm.
love for specific horror movies. Like I watched the DVD of this maybe twice, and I had it probably since like 2000.
Mhm.
And then I've already watched this thing a bunch of times, so it really did like grow on me as a movie that I really really enjoy, as cheesy as it is.
It's fun, but to me, like I hate the so bad it's good movies. Like I'm not a big fan of The Room, just like laughing at how terrible a movie is. I like to have a good time watching a movie, and I think this is the perfect blend of taking itself seriously and having stupid cheesy moments. I love it.
Yeah,
Like the
but
car
that's what
chase
the
in
80s.
here is phenomenal, and like he runs into a person, and the dude like flips when he gets ran into. Like there's some scenes where like you're watching, like holy shit, the practical effects in
Yeah,
here are great, and the stunts are awesome. Like when they're hanging on the rafters, flying through on that tarp advertisement. When they flip over from the explosion down 3 stories, there's just a lot of cool shit in this movie that I really like to watch.
yeah, on 100%. It's cool, but that's kind of what I find the magic of 80s horror. It's like these
Hmm.
concepts that really sound like shit on paper, but like they just make them work with practical effects, with just interesting characters. And I mean, you could take anything that's really good that we all love, and it's really like The Stuff is one that I absolutely love. But I mean, on paper, that probably would sound ridiculous to most people, in a boardroom, especially nowadays. I mean, I think that this just kind of fits in that category of like fun 80s horror. Like it just really just fits in perfectly.
Yeah. Didn't really talk about Ken Foray in this movie yet, but I
Right.
loved seeing him in this too. Just and the director
Right.
had no idea who he was when he cast him too, which I find very baffling. But that was
Which
fun.
is cool because like, yeah, he should be featured more because like, I mean, he's a big name in
Yeah,
horror. So just his name alone might get more people to be like, oh, what's this movie Ken Forey's in?
you think so? Especially
So,
another horror movie too. Yeah.
mhm.
Hmm.
So it does have a really good cast of people that horror fans would know if they watched. Like I said, you got the guy from Popcorn, and I don't think many people have seen Night Visitor, but you've also got the guy from Friday the 13th. I mean, there's a lot of familiar faces in here, Morgan Fairchild, and the other guy, like the photographer guy, like I think he was in like I don't know if you remember the show Silk Stockings.
Oh
I think he was
Jesus.
in
Yeah.
that. So like I think he was in like Melrose Place or something too. So I mean, he was a guy that I think many people would probably recognize by face from like the
Hmm.
80s and 90s. So yeah, it's got a pretty good cast of characters in here.
I love how like the masks he used from like the Phantom of the Opera style mask, he just chips off a mannequin that's in the mall. Just
It's
like
so good.
little random touches like that are what make me like really enjoy this movie. And yeah, I feel like it's one that I haven't seen before, but after watching this, I kind of want to. I already have like a friend group that I want to recommend this movie to and watch with them. It's that type of movie. You want to watch it with more people and kind of spread the word of it and have a good time
Dude.
watching it.
See, I'm happy that this all worked out for you. I mean,
Me
you could have
too.
came on and be like, "Why did you make me watch this
Right.
stupid thing?" But you know what's even crazier is I don't know the status of this now, but when this was released, this sold out so fast
Hmm.
that I thought for sure I'm like, "Oh, we're gonna see Arrow jump into like the Vinegar Syndrome style, where they're gonna take a lot of these older no-name movies, spice them up." Because I don't think they thought this thing was going to sell as fast as it did, and
Sure.
I know they had to restock it or repress it.
Hmm.
And then I don't know like if it's still available or you can only get it overseas or now it's just a standard release. I don't know what the status of like this big box is now, but I do remember there was a long time that this thing sold out very quickly when it first was released, like
Yeah.
faster than I think anybody was expecting, considering it was a movie like Phantom of the Mall.
Well, I think the cost had something to do with it too. I want to say like on like the Walmarts of the world, you get this for like $25. It was less than
That could have
30.
been
I
more.
remember it when it came out. Yeah. So to have a nice box set like that, especially for something like this, like that $25-$30 price mark is like the perfect blind buy. Like, especially that cover. I think that cover art really does like sell this movie. Even if you haven't watched it, you want to watch it. It looks
Yeah,
nice.
I mean, I kudos. I don't know who did this, but kudos to the artist that drew this, because this is, again, fantastic, and it really does draw a lot of people in to at least be curious about this.
Correct. Oh, there's one more special feature I wanted to talk about. The making of was great, but then there's also one that interviews the drummer from the Vandals, who did the last song on here, the one that runs through the credits. Corny ass song, and I when I first heard it, that's the first song that plays when the main menu pops up on the Blu-ray. I'm like, what the
It's
hell?
like that heavier version of song. Is it called like something in the mall or something? Is it like?
It's like must be the Phantom of the Mall or something like that.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
it's like at the title. I knew, yeah, I knew that. That one there. I don't remember the sound. I don't remember the feature on that. I don't know if I looked at that one, but I
It
did
makes
remember
fun
the
of the
Vandals
movie.
in
Like
it.
it makes it seem like the movie is going to be a parody of slashers or something. It just like they talk about how like the main villain kind of looks like a Jason-esque person, except they use like some slurs that shouldn't be used anymore. It talks about how like, oh yeah, malls, you're gonna get an orange Julius. Like it makes fun of the entire plot of this movie. But yeah, like when it's running through the credits, you're like, oh, okay, this is pretty good. Just a punk band who was in. I loved watching this documentary, or the little mini documentary interview thing, because it runs through like a history of that band too, to where like they were in a lot. They were in Suburbia. They were in a couple of movies that Penelope Spears directed, which was very cool to see. And then this kind of gave them like a second act, and how the parody of this song kind of made their band like evolve into what it is now.
That's so
Just
funny.
a very cool doc. And like a lot of these releases wouldn't put the time and care into stuff like that. And I just love seeing it.
I actually do think that the music is pretty good. I'm not sure if this has a soundtrack or not, but I really dug the song that they used a lot in the movie. That was like their song, and it was like that
Mhm.
slow. It was actually by Stan Bush, who's done so many big hits for Rocky, for Kickboxer. Like his
Mm.
music is all over the movies back in the day. So to see that he did like that song in here, which was they played a lot in the movie, because that was like the girl and the girl in Eric's songs. They would
Yeah.
play it over and over again. It's kind of like a slower like ballad, but it was one of those 80s songs from a horror movie that I just really love. Like when they, another one that always comes to mind is like at the end of The Blob, that strange new love or whatever that comes on. Like there's always these cool like 80s like pop ballads or whatever that will come in now and then that I just think is super killer. And this is definitely one of them too. If anybody wants to listen to it, just type in Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge, Stan Bush on YouTube, and the song's there. It's a good song.
As I say, I tried looking it up on Spotify just today, just to kind of like get in the mode, and I couldn't find anything on theirs. I should have looked on YouTube. It'd be easier to find music that way.
Yeah, YouTube has it. I looked it up earlier.
Right. And one other thing I learned about the documentary is that the mall that they were shooting in like does not exist anymore.
Oh, it's
Which is
gone, really?
kinda sad. That's what they said. At least the part that has like the roof on top of it, like all of the places where they were doing the stunts, they tore that part down.
Well, it makes sense because most of the malls around my area they're all vacant now anyways, more or less. Like
Mhm.
even some of the big ones, they're there, but there's nothing really going on. It's just a matter of time, which is sad. And that's just something
Yeah.
else. I feel like just something else that, was a staple of our life. That's just going to be something of the past. And it's sucks. And I can imagine this mall not being there anymore, but I also do think, and I could be wrong, that they use the same mall in the movie Chopping Mall. I
They
think
did.
it was
Yep.
the same. Okay. So, which is cool because again, it was a real cool looking aesthetic. And that's another movie that I really like because I love mall horror movies. I don't know what it
Right.
is. It's something about
Yeah.
that I just really dig.
I just like mall culture, and like you said, like that is slowly going away. Like just seeing them, like seeing like a detective scene in this movie take place in a Sam Goody store was the best.
So
Like just
man.
like going back and getting those nostalgic feels of like scrolling through, looking like FYEs are kind of there, but there's none around me, so I don't really have that to go for. Just catching magic in a bottle of just like, hey, here's what 80s malls used to be, and having a movie set there, I think goes a long way, and why I kind of like this movie as much as I do.
Now you
So
said where you grew up was kind of in the middle of nowhere. Did you have
Yeah.
malls like this, like where you were? Like how far was?
I mean, it was
that?
probably like a 45-minute drive, so we didn't
Mhm.
go that often, that type of thing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
It must have been special when you did, though.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's why I feel like this movie is a little bit special, is just because like when I did go to the mall, it was like this event. And just seeing that, especially in its heyday in this movie, like the crowds in here were crazy. Just, I don't know, everything about this movie just had like a nice, fun vibe to me. And I really enjoyed it.
Mhm. Well, good. I'm glad. I brought something
Mhm.
new to the table that maybe you want to get some buddies together and watch again.
That's the plan. Yeah. No, I as soon as I watched it, I was kind of like texting with a friend, like, okay, I think I have a movie you should see, because he knows that I do this type of thing and usually takes my movie recommendations to heart. So yeah, I plan on going over there and actually like watching this with him, which is very, very fun. I love
bring
it.
this version too. Don't let him.
Oh, of
watch
course,
any
yeah. I don't have any other version. This is the only
Okay,
one I
good.
want people to watch. Yeah.
I don't know if like he pulls it up on YouTube, he'll get some
God
crappy
no.
quality.
Probably, but yeah, please don't watch it that way. Okay. We have some comments in here too. I usually like to kind of sprinkle them in, and we've just been having a good conversation here. Have you ever watched a movie on like PlayStation VR or any type of like VR
I've
technology?
never used a VR tech ever. So I don't even know what that's going to look like. Like, I have no idea. I see people with them all the time and I'm like, what's going on in there?
Yeah.
You know, have you
I've
used
seen
them
like
before?
I've played games in it, and it's very cool, but I can only be in there for like an hour. I know they have like apps to where like you can have like a giant screen on there, and like 3D Blu-rays work in a PS4, and that's how you can
Really?
watch 3D stuff in the VR. So that would be
Really?
fun to do, and that's one I've contemplated buying one just to watch that experience, because I have a few 3D Blu-rays, but I've never had a
Yeah.
TV that's worked with them.
Wow, that's funny.
It'd
That's
be
so
kind of cool.
funny.
Hmm. Chris also likes this movie, so that's good.
What up, Chris?
Yeah. Movie Hunter, how's it going?
Movie Hunter.
Mid-level movie, yeah, or mid-level media. Let's do this.
Up, Kenny
Absolutely.
boy? Born to be obsessed. That's us, our life.
You know, got into boutique labels way late in the game. Missed out on a lot of titles. That was kind of me too. I think I knew Criterion, so that's the one I kind of started just getting my favorite movies. But Scream Factory, I didn't really figure out what that was until like 2018, maybe late 2017, and they were well into the game by then. And I feel like I missed on a lot of good stuff.
Well, lucky for you, they're all getting upgraded now, so you could kind of start over.
The thing is, like, I have a lot of the Blu-rays that I want, and the 4K upgrades for them, like, that's the only new thing in the packaging. And I bet the transfers look great, but I love special features. Like, that's one of the main reasons.
So are
why
you
I
not
love
upgrading all your Scream Factory?
No.
Okay,
Like,
I'm curious. I always curious
upgrading.
about people have their own rules with collecting. Like, I'm upgrading some, but like it's hard because I had every single collector's edition Blu-ray, every one.
Yeah.
So every time that there's an upgrade, it's like now I go through that thing like, is it worth a little bit of an uptick in quality? Is it not? So I go back and forth. I bought some, but I'm not getting all of them. So I'm just curious to see if you have specific rules on your collecting. Is it just whatever's new I'm buying, or are you a little bit more on like the conservative side when it comes to what you're upgrading, what you're not nowadays?
I feel like movies that I absolutely enjoy or I know I'm going to watch more than once, I will upgrade. Like I did Army of Darkness, that 4K, especially if it's in like a nice steel book. Like the packaging will go a long way for me too. The random 4K upgrades they have, if there's like nothing new to them, I kind of pass. But I did it for Army of Darkness. I did it for Pumpkinhead. Like there's a couple that I really like and that I think the 4K transfer will do wonders for. But if it's just like a movie that I have and I just think is fine, but I don't see the transfer is going to really add that much to it. If there's no new special features, I'm just kind of it definitely takes away from me like really wanting to buy that movie. And I feel like the longer I wait, the cheaper it's going to get, because the 4Ks are going to be there forever, and there's going to be nothing better than a 4K disc. And I don't think they're going to sell out anytime soon either. So I could just like wait for sales. Does
the when they do the exclusive Steelbook, does that entice you a lot more to upgrade that version?
Absolutely, yeah. And like I said, the Army of Darkness one, I love the way that Steelbook looks. So I bought it like right away. But then 6 months later, Walmart got their hands on it, and now it's $20 instead of the original like $30. Like it always pays
your
the
eyes
way.
on that.
Yeah.
I've seen my Walmarts. They have a lot of those Scream Factory Steelbooks that I thought were long gone at that point, but I'm seeing a lot of those on the shelf. I doubt, but there was one. I don't really do the Scream Factory Steelbooks. It's just I just don't And I think they look great, but it's just one of
Mhm.
those things. As soon as I start going down that rabbit hole, I'm going to get stuck. And I just was
Sure.
like, I'd rather not go down that route. But
Totally get it.
I would love to get my hands on the Child's Play one because it's got that like original artwork, which I love. And I
Mhm.
didn't get it because I got all the other ones. But now that I look at it, I'm like, man, if I see that out in the wild again, like if Walmart has it, I'm probably going to pick it up just because I just think it's really cool to have that original artwork on there, which I never ended up getting that steelbook. Did you end up grabbing that one?
I don't have that one, no. But it's one that does look amazing. I wish I would have picked that one up. So did you pick up the Scream Factory Child's Play stuff and the Arrow video once that came out, or you already had the Scream
I
Factory and you were
I
okay?
didn't get Arrow. No, I got
Yeah.
all the Scream
Mhm.
Factory stuff, and then I was like, I can't. The Scream Factory stuff was so expensive that I'm like, I can't
Mhm.
buy more of this. I wish if I would have waited, I probably would have grabbed the Arrow just due to a price point of it.
Right. Agreed.
Because it was so much cheaper than
Mhm.
the Scream Factory side of it. But at that point, I had already had everything. And then I ended up getting a custom box set for them. So I like
I
a
saw that,
box.
yeah.
So I
Mhm.
put everything in there and stuff. So it's a nice addition. So I'm totally happy with those now.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest fan of the Child's Play franchise, so I'm okay with the Blu-rays that I have. But if I were to pick one, it would be the Arrow video, just because the savings. Like it's crazy how much cheaper the Arrow video box set is as opposed to the Scream Factory individual slipcovers and everything.
It's
I don't
probably
know.
$100 difference, to be
Yeah, it's
honest.
insane.
Like, which is crazy to think about.
It's absolutely insane, man. Arrow's new intro always wakes up my wife, gets me in trouble. Yeah, I'm not a fan of their new intro. I should have pulled a clip of that too, but every time that pops on, I'm just like, nope, it does not hit the same at all. Let's see here. Do you have 4 favorite films? Infinite Character always asks this question on the podcast.
Man, on the spot, huh? I'm gonna definitely go Back to the Future is gonna be number one.
Hmm.
Favorite Back to the Future is definitely there. Lost Boys will be up there. I'll even throw Fright Night in there, and then I gotta give you one more favorite. Let me try to go outside of horror here. Looking around. What's behind me?
I was looking at your posters.
I'm looking around my room right now and I'm like, what do I have up? What's another? I mean, I can easily go with something like, this is so funny. I'll say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 90 is probably like one of my all-time
People that
favorite
grew
movies.
up with that movie absolutely love it, man.
And it's so crazy to call that like a classic or anything, but it's just one of those things like I can literally watch that movie like any day of the week and be totally happy with it.
Hmm. One of the posters behind you, The Thing. The Thing is my favorite movie of all time. I could watch that movie every day and be totally fascinated with it. It's a perfect movie in my opinion.
It's so good.
Yeah. Mine are The Thing, Toy Story. That's like one of my favorite animated movies ever. The Social Network, I absolutely love. And then there was this documentary that came out 4 or 5 years ago now, OJ Made in America. It's like 10 hours long, but it's so phenomenal. I would recommend
Now, was
that.
was that a full documentary or was that the one that was like people playing him? Because there was 2 that came out.
Oh, yeah, that was the People versus OJ Simpson, like American Crime Story. That's like a show. OJ Made in
so
America
this
was a
is like an
documentary.
actual.
Yeah.
Okay,
It was like a 10-hour documentary. Each 2-hour segment had like a different part of his life. Like one is just on his college football time, one is just on the trial, one is just on like after he got out of prison. Like it's broken up great. It's phenomenal.
I wonder if I watched that one. I forget, but that sounds great.
Highly recommend. How's it going, Fauci?
So, man.
Let's see here. John Doe Juggalo's in here too. How's it going, man?
Jeff?
3D Blu-ray on PS4 VR.
Wow.
Great. Okay, I need to do this. I've heard good things, but I feel like I just need to do this for myself, man. Underrated movie in your collection besides Fan with them All, Eric's Revenge.
I talk about this movie all the time, and it's called Firstborn. I'm a big fan of Firstborn, and I've been promoting this movie on my channel. I think people must think I like work for them or something, but it's a movie from the 80s, and it's got a crazy all-star cast. It's Corey Haim's first movie.
Okay.
Peter Weller's best performance, in my opinion. And I did a show the other day talking about it again, and I ended up getting it sold out on Amazon because I hyped it so much. I told people to go buy it, and all of a sudden they're like, "There's 2 left. There's 1 left. It's sold out." And
go.
Olive put it out, so it's one of those Blu-rays that that it's unless Kino grabs it or something. Like I don't. buy it because it was on sale and it might be
Back in stock
restocked now,
now
but
on Amazon. Yeah.
oh, look at this guy knows. Yeah, so grab it. It's like $15 or it was. It's so good, man. I actually think if you don't have it, Jake, I think you'd love it.
Yeah,
I
no,
really
I
do.
don't.
I think you'd absolutely love it. It's like a drama thriller type movie, and it's about Terry Garr is like a single mother, and she's got Corey Haim and Chris Collette are her two kids, and she meets Peter Weller, who's ends up moving in, and he's kind of like a scumbag guy, and they kind of start unraveling his I guess he's kind of like a con artist, and they kind of figure it out, and it's just a really, really cool like movie, and it's got a great cast in it. It's got Sarah Jessica Parker, it's got Robert Downey Jr. Like, I mean, it's really cool, really underrated. No one really talks about it, and I think it's just one that I think people would really love if they checked it out.
I'm typing that into my list of movies to get, or at least to check out, to watch the trailer, see if it's up my alley or not.
For sure. Yeah.
I've never even heard of that one. So yeah, my interests are piqued for sure. And let's see, your last question we have in here. Is there a movie that you can't stand watching? And
I don't like Cannibal Holocaust, all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not a big fan of that. So I would probably say that one. Because a lot of those that are like that, I've just never watched. So I can't say I can't stand watching it, like Salo and all those other things. I've never seen any of that stuff. But I'd say probably Cannibal Holocaust is probably the one I'd pick.
I can totally see that. Favorite line from The Bird? My favorite podcast.
Of course, it has to that.
Melly Melly. Yep.
What do you mean they were parked outside all day? That's my favorite.
Well, shoot, man. Do you have any more talking points on Phantom of the Mall? Like a last second pitch for anybody that's still on the fence about watching it or not?
Man, look at this beautiful release right here. Big thick box, limited edition from Arrow. Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge, 1989 horror movie. It takes place in a mall, guys. That's all you're going to know. It's an 80s setting in an 80s mall. You see things like Orange Julius, Sam Goody. You get the food court, and you've got a lot of cool 80s characters in there that you might see from other movies. And you got Morgan Fairchild in there too. So again, if you're going to check this out, you've got to find the HD version of this movie because it looks phenomenal. And I got to say, it's just one of those cool additions that Arrow never needed to give the love to, and they did. So I think it's definitely worth owning.
You're a hell of a pitchman, Garrett. Every time, like whenever I pop into one of your lives or watch one of your videos, you always get me hyped for things. Like even things that I might not be interested in. You're like, okay, let's go. Yep, he's excited. I'm excited. I love it.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that a lot. I mean, it's kind of just my gig. Like I said, I wasn't ever nervous to be in front of the camera. I knew like I was going to do something like this because, I was young. I got into pro wrestling. I did that for a while and then that didn't work out. I was trying to get on reality TV for a while. I mean, it was a whole thing. So now I'm here. So I hope you guys enjoy the ride.
I loved wrestling as a kid and into like high school. Stopped watching it weekly. I still like to watch the pay-per-views though. Like that's the main thing. And I watch like highlights on TikTok and stuff, just like little match highlights. But wrestling's fun. It's nice to have The Rock back and especially heel Hollywood Rock. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice road to Mania, which is nice. I mean, wrestling's been, in my opinion, pretty bad. I got out of it for the first time my whole life around 2000 because they were doing it in front of no crowds. It was just a really weird time.
2020? Yeah.
Yeah, 20.
Yeah,
what I say, 2000? 2020. Yeah, I got out of it, and I just got back in probably like a year ago, I think. Yeah. So it's been fun. There's a lot of new cool talent out there, but. Yeah, so that's kind of like my whole life was wrestling. So I mean, that's kind of like where I get the whole gimmick and personality and stuff that you see on the channel.
Yeah, he had a live stream recently where he had a 5,000 follower.
The Rumble
turned into 6,000 follower live stream. He based it around the Royal Rumble, and it is a blast to watch. It's very fun. The production value on your stuff is always so high, and I love watching your stuff. Whether it's live or pre-recorded on YouTube, it's just you have such a passion and you put a lot of time and care into every little aspect of what you put out. I love the stuff you do,
dude. I appreciate that so much. Again, it was a new thing for me to do. It was kind of something I've always wanted to do, is to get on YouTube, and it just really took, unfortunately, the pandemic for me to finally pull the trigger and be like, okay, let's do it. I've got all this cool stuff. I never get to talk about it. So let's find some more people that are into this kind of stuff and create a nice little community, which obviously I have. And all the people I met, like, I didn't know who you were before I started all this. So
Right.
it's super cool. And everybody who's watching it, here or on the replay, like, thank you guys for checking this out. It's just really cool to see how many people care in the community. So
no, yeah, I started YouTube stuff kind of heavily, I guess, like last year, and it's mainly because of the community. It's been nothing but positive things on here. Started this podcast just to kind of make more content, weekly content stuff, and it's doing okay on here, but it's doing very well on like podcast servers and stuff. So that's just another community that you gotta serve, and it's all just, everything is interwoven. I started with TikTok stuff, and that's where it really exploded for me, and I'm just trying to like get all of my stuff to as many eyeballs as want to watch it, you know.
It's not an easy game out there, man. It really isn't, and people don't realize the amount of time just creating content makes, because if you really want to try to get people to check your stuff out or to notice your stuff, it's like you've got to be on multiple platforms. It's not easy to kind of simulcast everything, so
Right.
it's like, I wish there was just one place you could go put a video and it goes everywhere, but it's not that way. You've got to do specific, titles for certain things. You got to do, if you do reels or shorts or go on TikTok, like, it's just, you got to post multiple times. It's hard sometimes to maintain. So, I appreciate, all the content creators out there, because I know how much how long it takes sometimes to, devote some time into this, especially if you have a full-time job and a family and all this other stuff. It's almost like a part-time job, which wasn't my plan, but at the same time, it's so fun for me that it doesn't feel like work, but it's become, work, which again, I think at the same time, sometimes it's almost better that way, because you take it a little bit more serious. So.
Correct. It's very fulfilling. And when I started just posting stuff on Instagram like 2017, 2018, and to come full circle, I'm glad you kind of brought that up. One of like the images that I used on my Instagram years ago was inspiration for a physical media release recently. Like the last one that ETR Media came out with, Everything to Entertain You, they used my image that I used in front of a family video as inspiration. And now like I had some type of
really
part and
I just ordered that thing.
It's very, it's dream come true type of thing to have like something that I was inspiration for to like be on my shelf now. It's very, very cool. Very, very humbling too.
Oh, I had no idea. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. It was all, I was told like a couple months ago, and he asked my okay for it. It was all good. And yeah, just, it's fun, just very slowly but surely. Last year, you and I think we were both in that documentary Collection Questions. It's just like little things to kind of like just check mark on the bucket list. My next one, hopefully, fingers crossed, is to get into some like special features, like maybe a commentary on something. I'm in talks right now, which I never thought I would be. So it's just those things to where like, hey, I'm trying to kind of dip my toe in, and this is slowly becoming like more and more of like a part-time gig, and it's just fun. Just go along for the ride,
Oh, definitely. And it really is. And I think that it just comes down to if you are proud of your content, I think once people see it, they'll be into it as well. And like you said, there are a lot of boxes to be checked. And I'm the same way. Like I want the brand to be taken serious. So I treat the channel serious, and there are a lot of boxes that I want to check as well. And I think, like you said, like being open to any opportunity, it could lead to more. And I think that that's just kind of, like you said, you never in a million years would have guessed that they would have taken your picture and been like, hey, can we use this for a thing? And if you didn't have an Instagram, you didn't have a channel based on this kind of stuff, then you would have never had that opportunity. Right. So huge. That's awesome.
The internet and just social media is, you would be surprised who looks at it. I'll say that. And just the bigger I've gotten, the more I've noticed that. And now it's just, it's fun to do. Like it's a part-time gig, and it's paying some bills. And if you do it for fun, it's not like you're working at all. So I love doing it. It's a blast. I'm glad people like it. But yeah, we've rambled on long enough. That's about all we've had about Fandom of the Mall. Thank you for coming on, Garrett. Is there anything else you want to plug before we get out of here?
No, man, I appreciate you asking me to be on. This is cool. Like I said, I'm always down to talk about different things. I think being able to really talk about something like Fan of the Mall and this Arrow release is huge, because I don't think I really got to talk about it much on my channel when this came out. I think I maybe did a review quickly, but it's just cool to talk about it and to get other people to kind of get interest in something that maybe they passed by. So very good. I mean, if I can plug anything, it's going to be my own channel, which is at Born2BeRad. You can find me on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. And then I also have a podcast called The Rad Pack with 2 other content creators on YouTube. And you can find us on the Rad Pack Pod on YouTube, which we do have a show coming up Friday. And the more people in the chat, the better the show is going to be, because the show has to do with the people in the chat helping us decide a winner between My Bloody Valentine and Valentine for the best Valentine's Day horror movie. So we definitely need your help to do that. And that will be on the YouTube channel over at Rad Pack Pod.
Yeah. I know I have my pick. Hopefully I can find time to squeeze into that live stream. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
squeeze in, throw your opinions out. There'll be different categories. So each one will get points and whatnot, and we'll decide the winner in the end.
Nice. Very, very fun. I have Garrett's link to his YouTube page in the description. So if you're not subscribed to him for whatever reason, go and do that. If you're listening to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff, rate and review would be awesome. There's a lot of people listening, but not a lot of reviews out there. So anything would be highly appreciated. If you're watching this on YouTube, again, a like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Again, greatly appreciated. At the end of every episode, I like to plug who my next guest is going to be on the next episode. And I have another fun one lined up with a couple of guys in the YouTube space that I really enjoy watching their content. We're going to be talking about the Second Sight Films release of It Follows. I'm talking with the 4K Kings. They come out with really good new release stuff. They keep you up to date on like a lot of the physical media news that's out there. They do some reviews from time to time. They're a couple of great guys to talk to. And I just can't wait to kind of pick their brain on this movie, because it's been a long time since I've seen it as well. Have you seen It Follows, Garrett?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I actually loved it so much when I saw it. I went and saw it again in the theater, which is not something I do ever, is I see a movie twice in the theater. So it's one of probably 3-4 movies I think I've done that with. So, but I watched the 4K Kings as well, and they put out great stuff, great quality content.
Yeah. Again, that's a good common ground for me. If your production value is very high, you have gotten a fan, because it takes a lot of work to make your stuff look clean and as slick as what you and 4K Kings does. And yeah, I'm not to that at all. I'm more of like hey, pump out as much stuff as possible. That's my stuff. I don't have time to like clean it up and make it look nice. So for anybody that can, more power to you. And I love watching it. So very cool. That has been episode number 20 of Boutique Talk. Thanks everybody for coming, watching, like and subscribe, all that stuff. And until next time, I'll see you.